Hello friends, and welcome to the daily Q&A session. This is a time of the day that I really enjoy because I get to spend it with you, and there's so many great questions that come out of this session every single day. Soulful Lens, welcome. I'm glad you've joined. And Yasminak, welcome. Thanks for the waves, everybody. And as usual, a little question mark below. Just type in any questions that you have, and I'm happy to answer them. Or, of course, just write them in the comment section. Hi, everybody. Welcome. George, good to see you. And so one thing that I didn't get to talk about yesterday because I had to cut it a little bit short is the question about my favorite apps for doing photo combinations or photo montages. And I love doing these. And if you look at the past 5 or 6 days, I've been doing photo app art, and it's been really fun, and really happy with the last 2 actually. So here is a list of the apps that I love to use, and I'm going to share them with you. Nlight is very good. Of course, Adobe Photoshop Mix, and that's what I've been using for these demos on my Instagram and Facebook page. Superimpose. Now, Superimpose comes with 2 versions. The original is called Superimpose, and the other one's called Superimpose X. And X allows you, it's newer, allows you to do multiple layers. Mextures. Now, Mextures is really good for adding texture to your images. So it is a layers app. And Lens FX, I use that as well for creating fake sunlight. And of course, Pixelmator. Pixelmator is a really good app to use for combining layers together. And really love all of those. And also, I tend to use 2 options for, of course, using your finger to do all of the work on your touch-sensitive iPad or iPhone or Android is great. I like to use a touch-sensitive pen, and I find that that allows me a lot of control. However, if this is so nice, I just throw it in my pocket. It's very small, and I can edit on the go. Of course, I'm not really going anywhere these days. I'm pretty much on my back deck all the time to get nice fresh air. So yes, that is my suggestion for on-the-go editing. So welcome, everybody. Just giving some waves. George, greetings. Hello from Greece. Hello from Canada. It's so good to see you, George. And all of you who are just joining, feel free to send out any questions. I'm happy to answer them. And you can just put them in the comment section below. Chirkut, hi. Hi back to you. Welcome. Adam, welcome. Mr. Paul, thanks for joining. Good to see you. Alessandra, good to see you. Rusted78, thanks for joining, everybody. So yeah, so feel free to send any questions. I'm happy to answer. Hello, Prayer Nagaloni 4, and I apologize. I still haven't been able to pronounce your Instagram name, and that's often the case because a lot of people joined up with names that possibly are not their own. Okay, hello from India, Sanjeev. Hello from Rio de Janeiro. Wow, that's great. Hello from the Netherlands. Kelly, good to see you, Kelly. And Kelly Lawson is a friend of mine from my hometown, great photographer and an excellent photography instructor. Welcome, everybody. Photo SLT. Hi, what tablet do you recommend for photo editing? So I'm not really well versed in the world of Android, to be honest. So all I know is the world of Apple devices, and the ultimate, of course, is the new iPad Pro. It comes with a pencil and it looks amazing. However, I always want people just not to go out and buy the latest and the greatest. The iPad Pro is really quite extraordinary. However, you can get some really good deals on earlier versions of iPads, because whenever there's a new version that comes out, people are wanting to sell their old ones, and they're perfectly fine. There's nothing wrong with them. In fact, iPads from 3 or 4 years ago are still okay. They're not the best, of course, but the reason I know that they'll be good for photo editing, the stuff that I'm doing on my Instagram, is because I was using the exact same apps that I mentioned a few minutes ago on devices that were 3 and 4 years ago. So you can still get great stuff. You can still do some amazing composites with your images from older gear. And also overstock. I suggest open box specials from local stores. It is very rare that I would buy, unless I'm in a rush, a brand new full price piece of gear if I don't necessarily need it. Now, if I need it for a specific project, then of course I'll buy it. But if it's a want rather than a need, then I will usually look for deals like open box, overstock, used. Hope that helps. I'm sorry I don't know much about the tablet world. Maybe someone else could chime in and let us know. Okay, Fly Girl Melinda, welcome. You pronounced it right, excellent. Prayer Nagolani 4, I appreciate that. Welcome everybody. And Indonesia, oh that's awesome, welcome Indonesia. Can you please talk about indoors project? Yes, Alessandra. So a lot of companies, especially Adobe, are doing a hashtag, and I think it's create indoors or something like that, and I forget what it is, to be honest. But if you look on the post that I did 1 hour ago on Instagram, here on Instagram, I have a hashtag right under my description, and it's, I think, 2 of them from Adobe, and I think it's something like create artwork indoors. I forget exactly what it is. And a lot of it is, obviously, the whole world, the creative world is encouraging people to stay really engaged with being creative by using your archive. So all of us have an archive, whether it be in our devices or external hard drives or our computers or whatever. And just going through the archives and looking for 2 images to combine in an artistic way that actually have similar lighting and similar perspective. And what that allows is you to be able to create really cool, fine art stuff by using different apps to combine the images. And it doesn't have to be just the stuff I'm doing, it's mostly architecture. It could be nature, it could be fantasy, it could be a whole bunch of things that you can do while we are not able to go outside to actually do photo shoots. That's what I'm doing, the indoor project. And you can see it, of course, on my Facebook and here on Instagram. By the way, I'm recording this, so if there's anything that we talk about today that's a little bit complex, like for example the exposure triangle, feel free to go to my YouTube page. That's Mark Hemmings Photography School. That's my YouTube, Mark Hemmings Photography School, and you can come back to see this recording and make some notes. Hope that helped. Hey, this is Shalia or Shalija from India. Welcome. I'm so happy to see all my Indian friends, and I love India. Okay, Speedy Pants. That's a really great name. Sanjeev, what is the best way to get good frames? Are you talking about good pictures? Well, I would say that usually the best, well, how I learned was actually, I didn't even go to photography school. I learned by myself, and I don't totally have an opinion either way. Should you go to a photo school, should you not? It's very possible to do it by yourself, especially in these days when there's so much training online. However, I learned by looking at magazines. So I studied every photography magazine, every fashion magazine, every landscape magazine. And I even went so far as to, when I went to Japan in my early days before I became a professional, I would just go through the subway and study every single poster, advertising poster, that advertised a Japanese product or service or location. And I looked at it very carefully. And I would just spend hours in the subways or the train stations. And I learned my original style from just seeing the Japanese professional advertising photographers who are amazing, they're world class. And it was just purely by osmosis, by surrounding myself with the work of people who I admire, who I like, the style that I liked. That's how I learned. That's how I got good frames, as you so eloquently put it. And other than that, you can certainly peruse other photographers' work to get inspiration. Just make sure that you never feel jealous or fall into that jealousy trap because the person you're looking at has more likes or followers than you. That's very, very dangerous. You don't want to go there. You only look at other people's work for inspiration, and you congratulate them. That's the best antidote for that terrible jealousy that often hits photographers when they see other people's work that's better than them. Great question. Lucy Wang, welcome. And for those who've just joined, maybe you're new, I'm doing a Q&A session to help you with staying creative during this time of isolation. RS Shutter, welcome. Hello from Switzerland. I've never been to Switzerland, but it's definitely on my list. How to check if histogram is right. Okay, so a histogram is a little bit complex. Think of histograms as mountains, a little mountain range. And on a standard picture, by the way, let me preface this by saying a lot of photographers are zoned in, are locked in to having the perfect histogram. I don't think that's necessary. I'll be honest, I never look at my histogram. Never, although I know how it works. And with regards to a histogram, what you're looking for is ideally the two edges of the mountain on both sides of that little box. Ideally, the mountain starts and ends at the left and right hand corner, bottom corner of those boxes. And histogram is a visual demonstration of both shadows and highlights. And if you have a proper lower end point and lower start point and lower end point of two sides of that mountain, left and right, with regards to the cube or the square that's in, then you're going to have a good exposure. And that's true. However, the reason why I don't care about doing that is because it slows me down. I shoot in RAW and I shoot instantly. I have to because I am a travel photographer. If you are a wedding photographer, a news photographer, a sports photographer, then checking your Instagram is a waste of time because you need to get the shot, you need to get it instantly. There is no time for doing anything but taking the picture. And that's why, because you're shooting in RAW, there's so much latitude in RAW that you can adjust shadows, highlights, midtones. You can adjust all these things later if you were slightly off in your exposure, okay? Now, in saying that, it's a very good idea, of course, to study how to use your histogram. Just don't feel that you have to for every shot. If you're doing studio work, then yes, histograms are great. That's an awesome question. Okay, now I'm just going to pop over to the question marks here, and I'm going to try to go in order, although it's not always easy. Let's see what we have here. Any recommendation on a good source for used lenses in the US? Yeah, B&H Photo. B&H Photo. That's my go-to. I'm a Canadian, of course, so it's not always that I order from B&H. For Canadians, a really good place for used gear is vistek.ca. That's vistek.ca. And they have an extensive used inventory, and you can see their used inventory online, which is really helpful. Rusted78, that was a great question. Thank you. Okay, let's see what else we have here. Abby, which website would you recommend for buying used camera accessories? Thanks in advance from Montreal. Isn't that funny? Totally independent, the same question. Yes, vistek.ca. That's my go-to for used. And because you're in Montreal, you can go to your local Henry's, but I don't know what extent Henry's does used, but definitely give them a try. But I use Vistek from your neighbor, the Torontonians. Excellent question. Okay, let's see what else we have here. Soulful Lens. This will be a two-part question. I have a Nikon D3200. I was gifted a Nikkor 50mm lens, no autofocus. Okay, yeah, so that is an older Nikon, a manual, and you know what? Those Nikon manual 50 millimeters are still excellent. Yes, you're going to have to switch to manual, and on your Nikon in the very front, there's a little button with MF, manual focus, or maybe just M if I recall, and you'll be all set. The communication still works, even though it's an old 50 millimeter metal manual. And by the way, those old lenses are really good quality. In fact, they're still highly sought after. I wouldn't suggest you get rid of that lens. Keep it. And whenever I go to Japan, I always love going to Ginza, going to the used camera stores. And those lenses still fetch a huge price, by the way. So don't let go of that lens. It's special. Great question. Okay, I'm going to pop up Soulful Lens. I struggle with I struggle with focus. I'm thinking I need that lens with autofocus motor. Yeah, so that's of course your second part of your question, I think. You may need, if you really want autofocus, then you should get the 50 millimeter f1.8 probably, or f1.4 by Nikon. However, that lens that you have, like I said, is a gem. It's really high quality. And I would just say that keep practicing, but if you don't want to do manual focus, then yeah, just get an autofocus lens. I hope that helps. Okay, a great question from Alif Zaim. What is your favorite camera now? Well, let me tell you, my current camera for professional work, that would be for professional filmmaking and studio work, is the Nikon D780. It is a real gem. It's tough. It takes great pictures. It's very good for video. However, I still, and by the way, for those who are in my digital camera mastery course at markhemmings.com, that you know that Fujifilm X Pro 2 that is in almost every lesson in digital camera mastery. I still use it. I still have it. That's my favorite camera, and I don't plan on retiring it. Even though I've put it up for sale last month, but I realized that I like it too much. We have too much history. It's been around the world a number of times. So my favorite is the X Pro 2 by Fujifilm. And of course now it's the Fujifilm X Pro 3, but I don't have the heart to leave the X Pro 2 because we are connected. That's a great question. Thank you so much. Okay, Soulful Lens says, yes, it does help. Okay, well, I'm happy to hear that. Great, so let's pull up another question here. This is from Muzaffar. Hi, Mark, what are the most common mistakes we as amateurs do when shooting photos? Or what should we do to avoid while taking pictures? That's a really good question. One of the mistakes that amateurs do, first of all, is get frustrated. And I see this all the time because their photos are not like the photos that appear online. One really important thing to know is that a lot of amateurs don't even realize, and sorry, my screen's going in and out, and I think it's because of a heavy internet use in my house. I have two teenagers probably doing a lot of surfing, so I apologize for that. If this goes in and out, then hopefully it'll come back on. Back to your question. If you get discouraged because your photos that come out of the camera are not up to the brilliant photos you see online, it's because there's heavy editing on photos online. So if you look at my images, my street photography doesn't have any editing except for black and white and tonal. But those wonderful landscapes and those fashion shots and all of the pictures that are just absolutely grab you, they have been edited. So my encouragement to you guys is to not feel that editing is cheating, but to come up with a set of parameters that you will abide by. Of course, they can change. These are ethical parameters whereby you say that you can say to yourself, I am going to learn how to edit for impact. I'm going to use Lightroom, I'm going to use apps, I'm going to use all these things to really jazz up my picture for the end goal. Now, what is the end goal? I have an end goal of teaching. So the images that I put up for you on my Instagram and my Facebook always have an instruction underneath them, or at least a link to an instruction. So I'm creating stuff for you guys. However, you will create stuff for yourself. Never create for somebody else. Well, of course, unless you're hired to do so. So I hope those are sort of soft skills. They're not really technical things to answer your question, but I really want to make sure that you don't put undue pressure on yourself to look like other people's work. You are going to use editing to bring up those amazing colors and to create work that makes you happy, and you're not doing work for other people's approval. Okay, great question. I love that. Okay, let's see what else we have here. Tips to edit color to black and white photography. Which software will you recommend? I love that question. I use Adobe Photoshop CC, both the app and the desktop version. And all of my black and whites are done within CC, Lightroom. And I have choices. I can use presets, profiles. I can use the normal, what would you call desaturation, which I don't use very often. But my favorite way to create black and whites in Lightroom CC is something called color channel mixing. And I touch on color channel mixing in my online course called Lightroom Editing Mastery, which can be found at markhemmings.com. And that's just sort of an advanced way to create black and whites. However, to begin with, just use profiles. And that will give you an idea of what you like for your black and white conversions. And then you can start making your black and whites by yourself. And that gets really fun. Awesome question. Okay, good. So let me do a little scrolling here. I'm sure a lot of people, I don't want to miss anybody, so I apologize. Okay, let me just keep scrolling here. Sorry, everybody. Okay. Sorry for the delay. Any recommendations? Flygura Melinda. Any recommendations on using Instagram for marketing your photos? Well, that's really good. That's a great question. And the answer is yes, by all means. Like if you're an influencer, if you want to get into influencing, if you want to sell a product or service, just yes, be present on Instagram. And do it every day, if you can, like post valuable content. Are you trying to sell your photos? Then yes, use Instagram. Are you, using photos, like I said, for becoming an influencer? The answer is yes to all of that. I think Instagram's a great platform. It's fantastic. And I enjoy it more than Facebook, to be honest. Okay. Welcome, everybody. The new people, we're doing a Q&A session. Lucy says, thanks, Mark. Enjoy your advice every day. I'm always happy to help. Okay. Do you recommend any websites or courses to teach photography techniques like the exposure triangle? Yes. And I suggest Digital Camera Mastery. That's the course that I teach. And I apologize, but I'm probably going to encourage you to use the one that I teach, mainly because I know that the exposure triangle is taught at length in Digital Camera Mastery. That's the course that I have on my website, markhemmings.com. That's markhemmings.com. And Wafa Hassan 17 is the first course you'll see. It's called Digital Camera Mastery, and it teaches you all about the exposure triangle. And of course, different angles to photograph. So I hope that helps. Okay, welcome all the new people. Question and answer time. Feel free to ask. Srinivas, hello Mark. Hope you're doing well. I'm doing well because I'm talking to you guys. I love this time of day. This is 1 p.m. my time, 12 o'clock Toronto time, where I have this hour to chat with you guys. And it's always a lot of fun, and I'm doing well, thank you. Just scrolling down here. Thanks for joining, everybody. It's good to see you all. Sanjeev, what you recommend, Photoshop or Lightroom or something else? Yes, Lightroom CC. That's what I recommend, and I use it every day. Lightroom CC, there's two versions of Lightroom. It's Classic and CC. I recommend CC because it's mobile, it's new, and to be honest, I really think that's going to outlive Classic. And in the professional circles, that's a very, those are fighting words. And when I say that, of course, I get a lot of pushback. But it's very rare that any tech company would feel inclined to support two versions of the same product. Like it's probably not the most financially advantageous long-term business goal or strategy. So my guess is that Lightroom Classic in years, maybe take 3 or 4 years, but it'll probably be discontinued. So I advise, if you're just starting out, go to Lightroom CC. Excellent question. Okay, welcome everybody. It's good to see you all. Handing you guys some waves. Can you talk a little bit about LR camera? How to use the professional mode? Alessandra says, yes, I love doing that. And by the way, you may not have known, but Lightroom CC app, that's the app for Android and iPhone, as well as tablet and iPad, has a very good camera. It's so good that I encourage everyone to use it. And the reason being is if you go into the professional mode and you switch from JPEG to what's called DNG, and DNG stands for digital negative, you will get amazing photos and a greater ability to edit those photos because you're shooting in what's called RAW. Now, if anyone doesn't know what DNG is, first of all, it's a RAW file, and that is an image that's taken using, of course, the physical camera in your iPhone or Android. However, it's being processed by not your normal processor within your iPhone or Android, but rather the Lightroom camera processor. This is a different app, and it allows for greater amounts of editing, both shadows and highlights, midtones, blacks and whites, because it's in the RAW format, hasn't been compressed to JPEG. This is good for you. And the DNG stands for digital negative. It was created by Adobe, wow, quite a few years ago now. I remember when DNG was introduced. It could be 10 years ago. I don't really remember, to be honest. However, it's a very good format. I would consider it the international RAW format because it's not tied down to Nikon. It's not tied down to Sony or Fuji or any of those other cameras. And some cameras actually allow for DNG within the capture itself, which is really, really good. So that's my advice. Go to the Pro mode, the professional mode in your Lightroom CC camera. Choose RAW and take your photos that way, and you'll have so much latitude for adjusting your exposure in the Lightroom CC app. Fantastic question. Okay, let's go back to our little question mark area here. Let's see what we got here. Any recommended apps? This is from Wafa. Websites or course to teach photography techniques like angle exposure. Sorry, I already read that question. Let's go to Alif Zaim. Hello, I want to be a journalist photographer. Can you tell where to start? That is a really good question. And of course, the first thing is to build up your journalism portfolio on Instagram. And what that would be is just study the current best photojournalists that you know of online and copy them. Yes, I said copy them. You're obviously not going to copy them perfectly, but you copy what they do, and then eventually when you get better and better and more experience and you're shooting every day, then you have your own style of mixing words with your images. Now, a photojournalist doesn't always have to be the writer. They are usually the photographer. There's two ways to go about photojournalism. One is you're just the photographer, but not just. I don't want to demean that, but you are tagged along with a writer. This is good. There's other photojournalists that are both professional writers and professional photographers. And if that's what you're looking for, then you add writing to your images, use Instagram, but also I would suggest using a platform called Medium. And it's medium.com, that's medium.com. And that is a higher end platform for photojournalism. And I don't know if you know about Medium, Alif Zaim, but I would say give it a go. Follow those people who you like and who are doing the stuff that you want to do. And glean everything you can, copy what they do, and or at least their style or how they present to the world. And once you have a portfolio that is good, that you feel is good enough to show to, like newspapers or online, whatever, then that's when you can start saying, look, here's my portfolio. I'd like to do some jobs for free. Now, we don't do free jobs all the time. We do free jobs to get in the door. And it's because I used to work in the movie industry, I know that it's very rare that within the creative industry, which is very competitive, that people get hired for cash just by a resume. It's very rare. You have to do your time by volunteering. Now, there is a time when you have to stop volunteering. You don't want to give away your goods for free all the time. This is to get the foot in the door, and then you say, look, I see that you like my work. Now it's time that we talk about cash. We talk about reimbursement. And when is that? Well, it could be maybe 2 months from the start point, your volunteer time. I'm not sure. It could be highly dependent on where you are going to be putting your time in. This is called a co-op term, or it's called, internship, and it's very valuable. Awesome question. Okay, let's see what else we have. This is from Melinda. Mark, in Lightroom CC, what is the Enable Lens Correction under the Optics tab? This is a fantastic question. I advise all of you do it. For those of you who know what this is in Lightroom CC, but also in Lightroom Classic, you can actually tell within settings to allow for Lightroom to correct the lens deficits. Now, when I say lens deficits, that each lens has a deficiency, and it could either be a softness around the outer perimeter, it could be a barrel distortion, or what's called a pincushion distortion. That's when pictures look bulbous or they look warped inward. And some lenses just are wavy. I remember using an early Nikon wide angle, and I tried to use it for architecture. It was a disaster because it wasn't an even distortion, it was a wavy distortion. So my lines would never be straight. So when you press that Enable Lens Correction, what it does is it goes to the data bank or the server and says, give me the information on this particular lens that was used for this particular shot, and I will correct it. This is all artificial intelligence. It's stuff that's programmed by the Adobe geniuses, and they actually have a database of all the lenses, the current lenses and the past lenses that have been most popular, and they draw from that database to correct your photo. It's very valuable. Definitely say yes to that. Excuse me. That was a good question. Okay, Muzaffar. What do you recommend, ultrasonic or stepper motor lenses, and why? Any advantage? Ultrasonic motors, I think, are standard, and I don't know much about stepper motors. Excuse me. I will cover my microphone. That was a big cough. I'm going to be honest. I don't know which one's better, to be honest. I've used Canon most of my life, which have been ultrasonic, and I don't even know which one is better. So I'm going to have to leave that to Google. But thanks for asking, Muzaffar. I appreciate that. Okay, let's see what else we have here. Now, I'm going to switch to comments in this scrolled comment section here. Sorry if I missed any of you. I apologize. Okay, here we go. I'm almost back on track. Shamilka says, hi, Mark. Okay, Fly Girl, Melinda. Should I be concerned about watermarking photos that are posted online? This is such a good question. This is a really debatable question. I don't bother. And you know what? My photos get stolen all the time. But the reason being is that I have a business strategy where my photos, okay, let me back up. My business strategy is I use my photos to advertise my abilities as a photographer. So I love travel photography. I love street photography, and I get paid for it. So I push out a lot of the photos. Every trip I go on, I put out the photos immediately, like really quickly, and I don't bother with watermarks because those photos themselves don't make me much money. Like, it's true, I do send the photos to stock photography companies, but they don't make any money, hardly at all. So I'm not concerned so much about the theft of my photos. What I am concerned about is getting as many photos out as possible into the world to act as a portfolio, to act as a proof of my skills. And those are the objects or the tools I use to get jobs as a photographer. Now, if you are a fine art photographer who sells your work in art galleries or online as prints, then yes, you would probably want to do the watermarking so that you have some level at least of acknowledgement that this is your photo. For me, I don't need to do it. I don't want to spend the time to do it, even though it's true that it's almost like a one-click in Classic, Lightroom Classic. It's still something that is not really that big a deal for me. However, like I said, you may need it if you are making a living from selling your work in art galleries or online as prints. Excellent question. Okay, hey everybody, welcome. We're doing a live Q&A, and if you just joined us, please feel free to ask any questions. Happy to help. Miss America K9, how can I convert images from RAW to JPEG after editing? Great question. There's many ways. Can you please just let us know what editing software you're using? If you are not yet using an editing software, Lightroom CC will allow you to do this. Lightroom Classic does, and most apps do actually. Let me talk about Lightroom CC because it's probably the most common, at least it's my favorite. When you finished editing your image, it was shot in RAW, and you like the way it looks, there's a little share arrow at the bottom left usually, and it has an up arrow within a little box. This is called the share arrow. You have the ability, when you're sharing an image, to adjust the parameters of your share. And you can share full quality JPEG, full quality small JPEG, or RAW plus settings. Now, all of these options are found within that share setting, and if you want to send your RAW file out to the world as a JPEG, you would simply choose either full-size JPEG, custom JPEG, or small JPEG. Small JPEG is perfect for social media because the resolution at the longest length is 2048 pixels. And if I'm wrong, it's probably only by a couple pixels. I forget the exact, but it's around 2,000 pixels. JPEG small 100% or JPEG small 90% is perfect for social media. Now, if you're exporting a JPEG for printing or for any other usage, you would choose export as JPEG full quality. Okay? Hope that helps. Jose Dominguez, welcome. Okay, Sanjeev says, can I do digital sign on my photos with Lightroom CC? The answer is not yet. However, you certainly can do your watermark name, but it's not as fancy as maybe like if you got a GIF or a JPEG or maybe a PNG, a really pretty looking watermark, then you would want Classic for that or Photoshop. And you can easily do that just by taking that photo into Lightroom Classic and exporting with that very pretty PNG graphic of your digital signature or whatever. Now, like I said, Lightroom CC does allow your name, and that's in the settings. When you export, you can include your copyright, and there's a few different options actually for fonts. So it's not that it's ugly, it's just not as pretty as what maybe people are used to if they get a very attractive signature. Okay, Alessandra says, we should use it in auto mode. Yes. When you're doing I believe you're talking about Lightroom CC professional camera, I use it in auto. Even though it's the professional, I don't even bother wasting my time adjusting aperture and shutter speed and all that stuff. Mainly because auto is going to get me the job done much quicker than me adjusting things. And now, of course, you should probably learn how to do that. But to be honest, I've never done any manual photos within the professional mode within the Lightroom camera? Great question. Okay, Anitra, welcome. D. Collins, good to see you. Of course, if you have any questions, feel free to ask. How do I get presets in Lightroom you mentioned in black and white photography? Excellent. So I advise profiles are a little bit better than presets. However, you can certainly do presets, but if you go to profiles instead in Lightroom CC, you're going to find an entire series of profiles strictly black and white. And what you do is you press in the profiles, you press the little, the word or downward button, downward arrow, and you're going to see a tray or a list of a whole bunch of profiles that you didn't even know were there, possibly. And it's a little bit hidden, but just press all the buttons when you're there, and you're going to find a ton of different profile options. And look for the one called black and white. And within black and white, I think there's 8 or 9 black and white profiles. And if you can't find that, just send me a direct message after, and I'll give you a screenshot on how to get there. Santosh, welcome. Timmy West, hey everybody, welcome. Feel free to ask any questions. And I'm just going to pop down here to the question mark. I think I see something here. Okay, Alif Zaim, Lightroom Mobile CC don't have golden spiral composition. Doesn't have golden spiral. Yes, you're correct. At least not yet. Lightroom CC does have usually updates every month, as far as I remember. And each update has a new edition that is currently in Lightroom Classic. And with regards to guides for composition, of course it does have the rule of thirds, but you're talking about the golden spiral or the golden mean, and it does not yet have that. Really good question, as far as I know. Okay, let's see what else we have here. I have Lightroom Classic. Is the profile available there? Yes. Yes, it certainly is. Because as far as I know, and to be honest, I haven't been back to Classic for over 2 years because I switched over to the CC 2 years ago. But I believe that the profiles and the presets are exactly the same within both Lightrooms. If anyone knows differently, feel free to correct me. Okay, let's see what else we have here. Forest Hill T, hello, how are you doing? I'm doing great. Thank you so much. Wow, the exposure really makes me look terrible right now. Let me see if I can change that. There we go. Okay, Sanjeev, hope you're doing great and staying home. Yes, actually, if you're interested, Sanjeev, which I know you are, and I appreciate that, I'm on my back deck, and I feel somewhat blessed that I have a forest behind me, as you can see. So it does allow me to avoid a certain amount of, what would you call it, cabin fever, because I have a back deck that I can go to, and I really feel bad for those who are locked into maybe, you know, like apartment complexes or so on. And if that's you, then I always want you to make sure that you feel free to contact me if you have any questions, so that you can stay really in positive spirits, because you can actually do photo editing. And I do a lot of photo editing before and afters on my Instagram page. And what do you guys think of the last 2 days? I think those have been my favorite. So after I hang up, just check out my Instagram or Facebook and let me know what you think. Okay, let's see what else we have here. Chrisno sent a request to be in your live video. If that is accurate, Chrisno, then awesome. If you pressed it by mistake, then just cancel, okay? And I know that some people press those little icons for live, coming on live by mistake. So yeah, no problem. Okay, Rod says, good lens for Canon M50, landscape and astro. Yeah, the Canon M50 has their own lenses, I think. Now, I should really make sure that I know what I'm talking about, because I've never used the M50s. However, if they're using the normal lenses that you would find on any DSLR from Canon, I really love the 50mm f1.4. And the reason being is that it's so good for astrophotography. because it has the lowest f-stop number for the price. So if you're doing a calculation on f-stop numbers, let's say you want a lens that is wide open, that allows for so much light to come in dark areas, and you did a cost-benefit analysis, I can almost guarantee you that from Nikon, Canon, and all the other companies, the 50 millimeter prime lens, f1.4 or f1.8, has the best deal with regards to how much money you're paying and the abilities that you have to photograph in dark areas. That's my suggestion for you. Now, a lot of people ask, what about the f1.8 compared to the f1.4? The cost difference is quite high. Don't be afraid of getting the 50 millimeter f1.8. It's still excellent and hundreds of dollars even cheaper. So that's my suggestion for you. Okay, so let's go to the question mark. How to photograph wine glass to avoid glare in pictures. Such a great question. And interestingly, I've done a ton of work in the wine and beer industry, and years of work, in fact, and I've always found it frustrating. In my early days, I learned how to deal with it after, but the only real answer I have for you is a photo studio. That's the only way, because I've tried, countless ways of photographing beer and wine bottles, using natural light without reflections, and it can't be done. At least, I've never found that magic potion. And it's because glass reflects everything. So because I've had a photo studio for years, and I use large soft boxes and specific photo lighting to make sure that those problems disappear. And if you ever want to get into studio photography, you're going to be wanting to photograph your glass, whether it be cups, wine, like I said, wine bottles, beer, all that stuff. Allow the soft boxes to be shooting from an aerial perspective with a slight angle, and that usually solves the problem of reflections. That's a great question. And interestingly, I don't have a photo studio anymore. I sold it when I started doing more travel photography. But I love studio photography. It's so fun doing studio work. Okay, Krisno says, sorry, mistake, no problem at all. And by the way, if anyone wants to know what those little two icons with the two happy faces, that's for coming on live. And I always welcome it. I've only had one offer. One person took me up on the offer so far. Okay, Rod says, Sigma has a 16 millimeter f1.4. Yeah, that's pretty wide, and actually that's a very impressive f-stop for a 16 millimeter wide. It's very rare, in fact, that you get a wide-angle lens with such ability to photograph in dark. And Sigma is a good name. They had a bad rap, like all third-party lenses, like Tamron, Sigma, Tokina, back in the day, like 10 years ago. But no, they do really good stuff. So thank you for mentioning that. I didn't know about that lens. Hey guys, welcome. YS Melitos, hello. Good to see you. And and just before I forget, I wanted to remind everyone, because I did say this at the beginning, that if there's anything in this live broadcast that that I said too quickly or you wanted to revisit, please, I'm going to be posting it to my YouTube page. That's Mark Hemmings Photography School. And please type in the school part there, because that's where you'll get it. So Mark Hemmings Photography School. And probably within an hour, I will post it so that you can come back and rewatch it. And I think I have 3 others there as well. So I'll try to do that each day, just in case you want to come back to see this. And so I'm nearing the end of my session. I have a little timer, and Instagram only allows me 60 minutes for doing these. And so I want to make sure that I'm checking out in plenty of time before I get cut off. So if you want to just throw a few more last-minute questions in, otherwise I'm going to say goodbye and talk to you soon. Here's one. I was in Toronto last month because the border got closed. Went to a winery on Niagara Lake. Yes, isn't that great? Niagara is such a great wine region. And I love that area. It's such a fantastic area of Canada. And it's actually a very warm area, and which maybe is perfect for wine. And I don't know a thing about growing grapes, but if anyone can, is thinking about a good vacation, like mostly, if you want to come up to Canada, then go to the Niagara region, and also the East Coast. Nova Scotia is wonderful. I'm from New Brunswick. I think it's great. Okay, let's see what we have here. Thank you so much, says Fly Girl Melinda. I'm so happy to help out. Okay, everybody, and thanks for joining me. And I hope all of you are well. Keep inspired. Take a look at my Instagram page, because I'm going to do before and afters of my digital creations. And I hope that you guys stay safe. We'll talk soon. See you tomorrow. God bless.